3 spine-chilling midnight horrors revealed. Terrifying true tales of cursed and sinister secrets. Sarah watched as the clock inched towards midnight, the air thickening around her like the fog rolling in from the nearby woods. Cedar Grove had always been quiet at night, a perfect suburb where whispers of community and safety lingered in the air. But tonight was different. An almost palpable tension clung to the shadows. She tucked Emily into bed, kissed her forehead, and wrapped her in a blanket cocoon. Those simple acts usually brought comfort. Now, however, they felt like stepping out of the frying pan and into the fire. As the echoes of the evening faded, her senses sharpened. It felt as if the world outside held its breath. Her heart raced as shadows twisted ominously against the emerging moonlight. Familiar trees that once stood tall now like fingers clawing at the sky. They whispered, or at least she thought they did. "Just tired," she muttered, shaking her head as she poured herself a glass of water. But deep down, an instinct whispered warnings. Her stomach dropped when she stepped into the living room and found Emily's latest drawings scattered across the coffee table. Confusion morphed into horror as she stared at the cryptic sketches of playground. Dark figures with haunting, faceless faces, elongated limbs twisting into unnatural shapes. Dread coiled around her chest like a vice. These weren't just childish doodles. Something primal about them set off alarms in her mind. "Mommy!" Emily's small voice broke through her spiraling thoughts, but it was just an echo in her head. No child should fear their own drawings. Shaking off the unease, she returned to the kitchen. But as she moved, she could feel the weight of unseen eyes watching her every step. Whispers curled around her ears, incoherent yet deeply unsettling. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue." Nights bled into weeks, and despite her neighbors' casual dismissals of her growing anxiety, panic began festering within her. They rolled their eyes when she mentioned Emily's drawings, and the unsettling feeling creeping through Cedar Grove like a fog. "You're just stressed," they said, smiles turning smug and eyes glazed as they returned to their uneventful lives. Yet families started to vanish one by one. Their homes turned into echoes. No explanations, no goodbyes. The feeling was undeniable. Cedar Grove felt like a ghost town, its people disappearing into the night, swallowed whole by their own suppressed fears and nightmares. The horror of it took root in her soul. Each night, she found herself peeking through the curtain to the playground where her daughter used to play, where laughter had once thrived. A dark figure now loitered at the edge, indistinct and unsettling under the dim streetlights. Her heart pounded. What was that? Should she call for help? "Mommy, I don't want to play with them anymore," Emily whispered suddenly, her small eyes wide and terrified, standing just behind her. That chilling realization surged through Sarah like ice water. These figures weren't just drawings. They were real, and they were here. As the clock ticked ever closer to midnight, shadows deepened around her home, wrapping her ever tighter in an all-consuming darkness. Encroaching terror loomed larger, and the truth about her neighbor, the perfect family next door, was tearing through the fabric of her sanity. With her breath hitched and her mind racing, she braced herself. What would she discover as she peeled back the layers of a reality that threatened to consume them both? A scream pierced the silence, shattering her breath and freezing her in place, as dread coiled tighter around her heart. In that moment, a single question thundered through her mind. Would she unravel the truth before it was too late? Sarah gripped the edge of the curtains, her knuckles turning white. The scream, was it from Emily? Or had it echoed from the playground? No, she couldn't let her mind spiral deeper into chaos. Mustering courage, she turned to face her daughter. "Emily?" The word trembled. She half expected to see her little girl curled in fear on the floor, but Emily stood frozen in the doorway, eyes fixated on something beyond the house that Sarah couldn't see. "Mommy, please, Emily whispered, voice barely above a breath. They don't want us to know. A chill swept through Sarah, gnawing at her insides. The shadows outside seemed deeper now, consuming the faint light from the street lamp. What was hiding just beyond sight? She took a step forward, toward her daughter, desperate to break the spell thickening the air. But before she could reach her, another scream ripped through the night, a shout of sheer terror, raw and haunting. Instinct drove her to the door, but something tugged at her, a deeper warning echoing from her gut. She could almost feel the darkness pressing in, whispering secrets she didn't want to hear. Stay inside, Emily. Lock the door. Don't come out. Her daughter nodded, wide-eyed and trembling. Sarah dashed toward the front porch, adrenaline kicking her heart into overdrive. Each step felt heavy as she stepped outside, the cool air washing over her like a wave of dread. The moonlight illuminated the playground, a once joyous place now drenched in an eerie silence. The swings hung still, swaying gently as if stirred by invisible hands. Shadows danced in the corners, darting beyond the swings, turning the cheerful decorations into grotesque figures. Sarah's pulse quickened. Who's there? She called out, her voice wavering but fierce. She felt small and vulnerable, standing alone against the phantoms lurking beyond the light. The dark figure from the corner of her eye felt closer now. Then a head bobbed into view, one nightmarish form, an elongated frame, its limbs stretching impossibly like branches reaching for her. It didn't have a face. It didn't need one. The presence was there, alive and staring right through her. Terrified, she turned to sprint back into her house, but the scream shattered the air again, closer this time. It spiraled into her mind, a cacophony of despair. Was it her neighbors? They must be watching, sorry for shaking their heads when she warned them. The thought panicked her. Just as she reached the door, a figure darted from the shadows, crashing past her. Gone in an instant, leaving hollow silence in its wake. Then it came back, a child's laughter, echoing from the darkness. Emily, she shouted, spinning around. Get inside. But silence met her call. Unease turned to dread, the world tilting. She fumbled with the door handle, rushing in, frantically looking for her daughter. And as she stepped over the threshold, a warm breath brushed against her neck, as though someone was right behind her. Mommy, they're here, they're not alone. Emily's voice trembled from the darkness at the end of the hallway, her small form so eerily calm, the shadows weaving around her legs like tendrils, pulling her further away. Panic surged through Sarah. She dashed forward, but her daughter simply smiled, a smile devoid of innocence, as the shadows swirled tighter, wrapping around her and Emily, draping them in a mantle of darkness. Mommy, they say it's time, and Sarah realized with dark clarity that the time for choice had passed. A chill crept into her bones as she reached for Emily, but the shadows enveloped them, whispering secrets only they could hear. Who are you? Sarah cried, desperation clawing at her throat. What do you want? The world around them pulsed, shifting, twisting into twisted scenes of the families that had vanished. She could see flickers of faces distorted by fear and chaos, trapped in an eternal loop of horror, surrounded by those ghastly figures. In that moment, Sarah knew Cedar Grove held a darkness far older than her fear. With one final look at her daughter, the figure next to her began to morph, limbs elongating, face shifting into something grotesque and unsettling. The whispers grew louder, enveloping her mind. And then, into the everlasting night, when miles of silence surrounded her, a single question floated past her thoughts. In this tangled web of terror, was she destined to become one of them? Darkness closed in tighter, leaving Sarah with the chilling reality that perhaps they never truly left Cedar Grove at all. The darkness thickened like a fog, swallowing Sarah's surroundings. Her breath quickened, heart racing as she forced her fingers to stretch outward, searching for Emily in that thick blackness. The whispers tickled her ears, a medley of voices, some familiar, others distorted and strange. They huddled together like a war party, secrets wrapped in shadows, closing in. Mommy, help me. Emily's voice cut through the murk, sharp and distinct. Plea no mother could ignore. "I'm coming," Sarah screamed, confusion and fear swirling in her gut. She squinted through the dark but saw only shadows writhing in a grotesque dance around her. The chilling laughter echoed again. But this time, it was joined by a new sound, soft, desperate sobs, almost childlike, threading through the sinister chorus. "Emily, where are you?" Panic clawed at her throat as she staggered forward, every step a struggle against the growing weight of dread. She could feel the temperature drop, her skin prickling with an otherworldly sensation, like being watched, even as she searched blindly for her daughter. What were they? Who were those trapped in the dark? As if answering her question, the shadows coalesced into a figure, tall and serpentine, its body shifting with a disturbing fluidity. It beckoned her with elongated fingers, the air vibrating with what resembled laughter but felt like malice. But there was another sound, a voice much closer, soft and sweet, yet tainted with fear. "Mommy, please, I can't hold on much longer." Sarah's heart thundered. She pushed through the shadows, tearing at the darkness around her, desperate to reach her child. The echo of Emily's voice guided her like a haunting melody. "Hold on, sweetie. I'm coming." A panicked rush blinded her, and she squeezed her eyes shut, desperate to will away the shadows. When they opened again, they burst into a scene that twisted her stomach, a panorama of trapped souls. Gray faces contorted in eternal agony, eyes wide with hopelessness. They reached out to her, whispers of despair coiling around her, urging her to listen, to understand what it meant to be ensnared by Cedar Grove. "Mommy!" Emily's voice cracked, pulling Sarah back to her goal. She stumbled through a mass of shadows thrumming with energy, feeling their cold grip and damp heat sinking into her skin. Suddenly, she stepped forward into a clearing. Brightness? No, it was a trick. There stood Emily, suspended in midair, her small frame enveloped in swirling darkness as the sinister laughter intensified. Shadows knotted around her like vines, and she was crying, tears rolling down her cheeks, shimmering in the moonlight. "Let her go," Sarah roared, bearing down on the figure holding her child captive. The thing pulsed with dark energy, shifting its shape, taunting her with Emily's cries as if they were a twisted song. "You can't take her. She belongs to us now." The voice that emerged was a chorus of the damned, resonating within Sarah's skull, a sound that seemed to make the very ground tremble beneath her feet. "No!" Sarah shouted, every fiber of her being ignited with rage. She leapt toward Emily, heart racing, body trembling from the weight of the darkness clawing at her. But as she reached out, a shockwave forced her back, rippling out from the dark figure. Staggering, she fell to the ground, gasping for breath. Around her, the dark waves thrashed, threatening to close in. The thing watched her, a gaping void where a face should be, malevolence bubbling just below the surface. "Join us, Sarah. There's no escape." It's too late, her mind raced. Those faces from before, the whispers, could they be her neighbors? Friends who once laughed and lived here? But what was there to lose anymore? "Time is running out, Mommy." Emily's terrified cry pricked her heart, and for a moment, clarity broke through the fear. In an instinctual surge of fierce love, Sarah gripped the earth beneath her and yelled, "I will take her back. You have taken enough." The shadows recoiled as if struck by a blow. The figure faltered, confusion rippling through its dark form. This was her moment. She lunged again, reaching for Emily, determination fueling every step. And then, just when the shadows seemed to relent, she felt something pull at her leg, not the shadows, but something much worse, a cold, clammy grasp sneaking up from the ground itself. "Sarah," a soft voice whispered from beneath the surface, an echo of those lost. "Will you leave us?" Her heart sank, the question lingering in the air, heavy with despair. Was it really a choice? As the ground heaved and shadows beckoned, she dove toward her daughter, knowing only semi-darkness stretched beyond her grasp. What would she find waiting in the void? "Mommy!" Emily's voice squeaked through the tumult, and Sarah felt her resolve falter just as the ground beneath her threatened to swallow her whole. And in the twisted game of Cedar Grove, the whispers grew louder, swirling with urgency. Choose wisely, for the night will never end. The ground writhed beneath Sarah, a living entity clawing up to embrace her, pulling her down into its icy grip. Shadows whirled, morphing into grotesque forms that taunted her as if they were aware of her deepest fears. The voices grew louder, each a wailing cry echoing with pain and despair, urging her to listen to their tortured stories, to linger just a moment longer. "Mommy, please," Emily's fragile voice broke through the chaos. The very sound ignited a flame in Sarah's chest, but the hesitation of that cold grasp restrained her, tugging at her resolve. "Let her go," she cried desperately, reaching out with both hands, her body moving as if propelled by sheer will. But the energy of the dark figure surged back, an overpowering wave that crashed around her. It taunted her, weaving through her thoughts, the voices blending into one threatening melody, a sinister lullaby. "You're too late. You cannot save her." With each word, Sarah felt the dark figure tightening its hold on her child. The swirling shadows laughed, and the ground beneath crackled with energy, the chill creeping deeper into her bones. But the thought of losing Emily was her anchor, even as terror gnawed at her heart. She clenched her jaw, fighting back raw panic. "Not today." With a guttural scream, she digged her hands into the earth as if to claw her way back to the surface. She felt the whispers turn into shrieks of protest, the shadows recoiling momentarily. She pushed against the darkness, feeling pressure in her chest, the air thickening, heavy with despair. "Mommy!" Emily's voice was slipping away, a soft echo fading into the cacophony. In that split second, an image flashed through Sarah's mind, days spent laughing, playing, the sun shining, the warmth of Emily's small hand in hers. For a fleeting moment, she could almost feel it again, that love radiating between them, illuminating the encroaching darkness. "Fight back," a voice her own yelled inside her head. It was then that she remembered the warmth in her heart could be weaponized. She would not let them take Emily, not now. Fueled by a fierceness she never knew she possessed, she pushed against the shadows with everything she had. "We are not your prisoners," she screamed, unleashing her tight grip on despair. "You will not win." The ground shook violently, and the shadows around Emily flickered. The figure twisted and turned, its laughter breaking like glass, shattering into a chorus of terrified screams. Sarah lunged once more, adrenaline surging. Darkness recoiled, and the weight pressing on her dulled as she surged toward Emily, who now hung limply, as if the shadows sought to drag her further down. Just as she reached for her, a spectral hand snatched at her wrist, freezing her in place. The talon-like fingers dug into her skin, leaving a cold breath on her arm. It was strong, too strong. Panic surged through her veins. "You will never leave." A desperate breath left her, sharp and painful. In that moment, despair turned to defiance. "If I can't leave, then you won't either." With a deep breath, she channeled every glimmer of light, every joyous memory, and hurled it at the shadows like a brick through glass. "You are nothing. You can't have us." The ground trembled, and suddenly, a crack of light splintered through the omnipresent darkness, a shaft piercing through, illuminating Emily's pallid face, the tears glistening like stars. "Mommy!" Emily cried, stirring as her mother's words bloomed into the night. But old darkness hissed back, furious and relentless, as if the deep void of Cedar Grove screamed at its defiance. Just then, she heard another voice, a low, menacing roar that sent shivers down her spine, echoing from the depths of the shadows. "You will regret challenging us, Sarah." The darkness never truly leaves, it shifts. The light flickered, the grips loosening just a bit, and then just like that, everything fell still. The sinister laughter faded, replaced by an eerie silence that pressed against her ears. A void waiting to be filled. She tightened her hold on Emily. Uncertainty gnawed at Sarah. What awaited in that silence? Could this be the calm before the storm? More shadows lurked, unseen but palpable. What would they unleash next? The whispers had quieted, but a heavy anticipation lingered in the air. One thing was clear. The battle had only just begun, and the night was far from over. The silence was deafening, a blanket that wrapped around Sarah and Emily. Time seemed suspended in that moment, each heartbeat echoing the uncertainty that hovered in the air. Gripped by the lingering shadows, Sarah felt a chilling dread creeping in. What had she awakened in her defiance? Emily's eyes flickered open, but they weren't shining with innocence. A cloudiness hung over them, as if her spirit had been dimmed. "Mommy," she whispered, her voice barely a thread in the oppressive quiet. "Stay close," Sarah urged, inching backwards but never turning her back to the dark. The shadows shifted, coiling around them like misty serpents, hungry and alive. All at once, the air quaked, and a howl erupted from the pit of darkness, a scream that shattered the ominous stillness. It seemed to pulse, resonating in Sarah's bones, creeping into her mind an echo of warnings unheeded. Panic clawed at her throat. "We need to go. We can't stay here." But the ground beneath them, alive and sinister, stirred again, tendrils extending like grasping fingers, dragging at her ankles. "No," Sarah shouted. She would not be taken. Not now, not ever. With a surge of primal energy, she pulled Emily closer, her heart racing. They began to move, stumbling through the maze of shadows, each step heavy with dread. The whispers returning, hissing secrets that slithered into Sarah's ears, entwining her thoughts. "You cannot escape," they taunted, each syllable dripping with malice. "The darkness knows your fears." They reached a clearing, but the ground split into a fissure, black as pitch, a yawning chasm of despair. With a frantic glance over her shoulder, she could see shapes emerging, contorted forms forming from the shadows, eyes glinting with ravenous hunger. Her breath hitched in her throat. "What do you want?" she screamed, voice breaking with weakness. "Your light," the voices replied in unison, chilling and sweet. "Only then will you be free," she echoed, incredulous. "You think stealing our light will free us?" "Light comes with a price, it demands tribute," they growled, coiling closer. The chill surged through her, gripping harder than before. Emily whimpered, head tucked against her mother's side. "Mommy, I'm scared." All at once, realization slammed into Sarah. Each anguish and moment of despair they had ever lived, the darkness fed on it. It thrived on them. The shadows weren't just spirits. They were the hollow remnants of lost souls, cursed and twisted, desperate to feed on any glimmer of hope. "We're not going to give it to you," she spat defiantly. The ground shook violently as an anguished cry echoed from the crack below. "You will regret this, Sarah." Your defiance stirs something more sinister, something that cannot be contained. Suddenly, a mass of shadow surged forward, a swirling vortex of darkness, reaching with clawed hands that scraped against Sarah's skin. "Fight! Fight!" she screamed at herself, summoning every ounce of love, of light. Her memories of Emily floated against the tide, a beacon trying to shine through the onslaught. And there it was, a flicker, bright and radiant. "Hold on, Em. Hold on tight." They stood shoulder to shoulder as the shadows lunged, a tempest of shadows threatening to consume them. The light in Sarah's heart glowed brighter, and for a split second, the shadows hesitated. But then, in a brutal surge, they roared forward again. "Your fight is futile." The dark figures howled, scrambling closer, their breath a foul wind against her skin. Sarah's heart pounded with fear. She battled against her instincts. Just as darkness threatened to envelop them, Emily took a step forward, small but fierce. "You will not take my mommy," she shouted, the very defiance echoing through the veil of shadows. And in that moment, as terror hung thick in the air, Sarah realized the key wasn't in fighting alone but uniting their light against the encroaching void. All at once, a searing warmth blossomed between them, a shared energy that seemed to burst from their hearts. Together, they cried, voices rising above the chaos. As shadows shrieked, recoiling, from the brilliant glow, Sarah felt a rush of strength enveloping them. Yet beyond that chaos, a deeper darkness stirred. Something older, something that knew them. "What waits after this?" A voice slithered toward them, visceral and filled with anticipation. The shadows recoiled, but it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. A deeper fear gripped Sarah as she realized they had awakened something far worse. What awaited them in the abyss? Only one thing was certain. This was only the beginning. Darkness pulsed like a living entity, its weight pressing down on Sarah and Emily. The air was ice-cold, swirling around them in an almost sentient way. As the glow flickered, shadows swam back, temporarily thwarted by their unity. But their retreat felt hollow, a calm before a storm that threatened to break. "Mommy, I don't want to be here," Emily whimpered, clutching Sarah's leg. The little girl's fear crackled in the air, a tangible thing that made Sarah's insides twist. She crouched down, their faces almost touching, her heart pounding hard against her ribs. "I know, honey, but we have to stay strong. We need to find a way out." Sarah's voice broke slightly, the lingering darkness creeping into her resolve. Before they could catch their breath, the shadows wriggled and slinked, merging back into a single serrated mass. From it, a figure began to coalesce, a nightmare made flesh. Its eyes blazed with an unnatural hunger. "You think your light can drive me away?" It growled, voice low and graveled, reminiscent of long-forgotten tombs. Sarah shivered, adrenaline spiking. What are you? "You've stirred my slumber, foolish girl," the figure rasped, its mouth stretching into a wide grin, teeth jagged and sharp. "I am the collector of despair. I thrive on anguish, and your bravery only makes the feast sweeter." The shadows writhed behind it, waiting hungrily, ready to pounce. Panic clawed at Sarah. "We have to go," she urged, scrambling to her feet, pulling Emily along as they fled down a dark path that twisted beneath a canopy of withered trees. Each step seemed like a lullaby to their pursuers, the howls of the figure echoing angrily behind them as the shadows reached out, trying to grab hold. "Run, Em. Don't look back." With each heartbeat, the darkness drew closer, wrapping around their ankles, pulling them back into its cold, suffocating embrace. Emily tugged uselessly, her small frame straining against the weight of despair. "Mommy, I can't." Her voice broke, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Yes, you can. We can't give in." Sarah fought against the choking grip threatening to draw them into the abyss. Remembering the light that had flickered before, she closed her eyes, focusing on Emily's warmth, the glow of love that had pushed them forward. "Think of the sunshine. Remember our garden, the flowers we planted together." As the image filled her mind, a sense of warmth surged through her, battling the shadows that clawed at them. Emily squeezed her eyes shut, whispering, "I remember." Suddenly, the darkness paused. The figure hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty flashing in its eyes. "This light, it can't be." But then it growled, the sound like cracking thunder. The figure lunged, shadows cascading toward them in a storm of darkness. "You cannot escape what you have summoned." There was no time. Sarah grabbed Emily's hand tighter, forcing their feet to move. They stumbled over uneven ground, breath shallow as the howls threatened to swallow them whole. Through the chaos, Sarah felt a familiar tug on her heart, her desire for freedom, for safety, for light. She needed to believe they could escape this nightmare. But a chilling realization crept in. What if we can't? What if it's too late? Her thoughts spiraled downward, past the weight of despair, grappling with the truth of their situation. They were weak, cornered, hunted. And then, she heard it, the faint whispers of ghosts past, like a choir of forgotten souls, closing in. "Endless pain awaits. Welcome back to your nightmares," they sang, a haunting melody laced with malice. Sarah's heart sank. She was losing herself to the spiraling darkness, and that figure knew it. "Emily," she started, but the shadows tightened their grip, turning her voice into a muffled echo. With desperation, she shouted, "Believe, Em. Don't let them take us." But inside her mind, doubts raged, darker than the void around them. They burst into another clearing, lit dimly by distant memories of a sun that once shone. But there, looming, stood something even more grotesque, a grotesque alcove that housed countless trapped souls, their silent screams muffled by the consuming darkness. "I will take your defiance and break your spirit," the figure laughed, the sound reverberating through the air like thunder. Emily clutched her mother's arm as she noticed eyes peering through the veil of shadows. "Look away," Sarah yelled, her mind racing. The nightmares grew close, hungry for their despair. But deep down, she felt a flicker of understanding. To confront the abyss, they could not run from their fears. "What if we fight in the darkness rather than escape?" she thought. Would it work? Could facing it head-on turn the tide? As more shadows closed in, Sarah turned to Emily, a new determination igniting in her chest. "We're not alone, sweetheart. We have each other." But even as she said it, doubt loomed like a storm cloud over them. Was this plan doomed to fail? The figure watched, grinning, ready to strike. What awaits us now? Sarah wondered, bravely facing the darkness. As shadows laughed wickedly, "Hold on to me." And as they readied themselves for what was to come, the abyss whispered promises of despair and hunger. What lay ahead in this battle of wills? This fight against the dark? The terrible truth was curled in the shadows, waiting for its moment. The shadows converged, their edges sharp and eager. Sarah's heart raced as she faced the looming figure, an amalgamation of all her fears, the embodiment of despair itself. Emily clung to her, eyes wide, the innocence in them a haunting reminder of what was at stake. "We stand together," Sarah whispered, the words barely escaping her throat as she squared her shoulders. "You think camaraderie will shield you?" The figure sneered, a cruel flicker of amusement in its glowing eyes. "I thrive on the bonds of love, the ties that bind you. When I take one, the other will break." Cold terror washed over Sarah, drowning the flickering light of hope. "No," she gasped, but the figure's laughter echoed through the clearing, chilling her to the bone. From the darkness, shadows surged, twisting through the air like serpents. They wrapped around her ankles, pulling her slowly toward the ground. Emily's small hands squeezed tighter. "Mommy, please, no." "Emily, don't let go," Sarah roared, fighting against the pull, her body straining. Each movement was a battle, her resolve weakening as despair threatened to envelop them. "Look," Emily cried, her voice bright against the gloom. "The flowers, they're there." Staring into the darkness, Sarah blinked. At the edge of the clearing, something flickered, the pale, ghostly silhouette of their garden. Flowers she had planted, memories etched in petals, glimmered faintly as if they were reaching out to them. It was a beacon of warmth amidst the cold grasp of the shadows. "Focus on them, sweetheart. Picture the garden," Sarah yelled, anchoring her will to the radiant image. "Remember the sun shining on our faces?" With a deep breath, Emily joined her, eyes scrunching shut against the encroaching darkness. "I remember. The daisies were so pretty." Her voice was stronger now, fueled by the urgency to fight back. The figure faltered for a moment, the shifting shadows curling hesitantly. "What is this?" it hissed, inching back. "Your light, it cannot exist here." Desperation surged, and Sarah pushed against the shackles of darkness. "We can bring the light into this dark place if we believe it's stronger." She could feel the glow of her memories beginning to spark against the cold. Warmth radiated from their connection. With a newfound strength, she shouted, "You don't own our despair. We control our light." As the words filled the air, the dull ache in her chest began to fade. She felt Emily's warmth suffusing her thoughts, stirring her heart to swell with courage. Together, they willed the garden to life. The shadows released their grip, coiling uncertainly instead of holding fast. The flickering glow expanded, spilling threads of light that cut through the oppressive darkness like a knife. The flowers shimmered brightly, their vibrant colors igniting the clearing as laughter filled the air, laughter full of love and joy. However, the figure roared back to life, fury boiling in its growl. "You think you can defy me? You have no idea who you're fighting." The earth trembled beneath their feet, a deep throbbing echo mirroring their own hearts. The cavernous sounds swallowed all traces of hope. "I will consume what you cherish most," it shrieked, beyond reason. "We will not let you," Sarah screamed, clutching Emily's hand so tightly that her knuckles turned pale. The shadows struck back, swirling furiously in retaliation. But the light pushed against them, becoming almost tangible. Yet in the depths of that resistance, a cold realization dawned on Sarah. More than just their love was at stake. This was a battle for every soul ensnared in those cursed shadows, trapped and silenced. "Every soul we save makes us stronger," she murmured, drawing strength from unyielding hope. But in that moment of revelation, chills snaked up her spine. Something deeper and darker retreated within the shadows, a pulsing darkness, writhing and hungry. A part of it was biding its time, waiting to strike when they were at their weakest. "Stay close, Em," Sarah urged, preparing for the inevitable fight. As the shadows swelled around them, Sarah felt the looming weight of despair creeping back. How much longer can we hold them off? She thought, heart racing with a final surge of light. The garden burst forth in a wave harder than the night, pushing against the figure of despair. "Together, we will find a way," she whispered, each word a vow, a desperate thread woven into the fabric of their struggle. But as Sarah turned to face the figure, something unimaginable clung to the edges of reality, a gnawing sense that what awaited them was worse than despair itself. What true horror laid behind that sickening grin, hidden just beyond the veil? Would the garden's light be enough to push back the shadows once and for all? The ground began to shake, a deep and unsettling rumble that threatened to swallow them whole. Tendrils of darkness slithered over the flowers, snuffing out their vibrant glow like a candle in a storm. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest, each beat a frantic plea for strength, for clarity. The laughter of the figure resonated through the clearing, mocking, relentless, as if feeding off their fear. "Can you feel it?" it taunted, its eyes gleaming with malevolence. "The darkness is coming back to claim you. The light is weak, fragile, just like your hope." "Emily!" Sarah shouted, refusing to lose sight of her daughter. The girl's green eyes sparked with resolute fire. She mirrored her mother's courage, drawing in a deep breath and channeling their love. They needed to build a fortress around it, a foundation of intentionally chosen memories encased in light. "Think of the best day we had together," Sarah commanded, gripping Emily's hands tightly. "The beach? The swings? What made you happiest? Playing in the rain? Running barefoot?" Emily cried, her voice cutting through the despair. "Then we build that. Focus." As they conjured images of laughter and joy in their minds, something shifted. The flickers of their past radiated warmth that spilled through fingers intertwined, their light intertwining into a soft glow. But the dark figure did not back down. It writhed, snarling as it began lunging forward, shadows swirling around the clearing, making the trees bend. The roots beneath them erupted, tendrils of darkness reaching out, searching for weakness. "What is this? You dare to resist? I am the end of all light," the figure bellowed. "I see you for what you are," Sarah shouted over the roar. "You are just a coward hiding in shadows." The figure's laughter warped into a rage-fueled roar. "Then let us see how you handle losing something you hold dear." Before Sarah could react, a shadow whipped through the air, a fleeting wisp that struck against the earth with a piercing sting. A shudder ran through Emily, and Sarah felt a rip in their connection, a cold, disorienting rift that tugged at her heart. "No!" Sarah screamed, eyes searching wildly for her daughter. Emily staggered but held her ground. The garden glowed, flickering but resilient. It was their sanctuary, their strength. "Remember the butterflies?" Emily breathed, and her voice stretched out as if it were a lifeline. "They're beautiful. Remember the colors?" "Yes." "The orange and yellow. Whenever they landed on our hands, they felt so soft," Sarah shouted back. Sparked by this memory, flickers of light burst forth like fireflies in a disaster-ridden night. The shadows around them recoiled, swirling away from the brilliance that now drenched the clearing. But the darkness was not finished. It lurked, restless and hungry, clawing against its own confinement. "Your bond is weak, little girl," the figure hissed, its voice like ice scraping glass. "I will shatter it. Each of you deserves to be torn asunder, and I will consume you both." The words were jagged blades, each cutting deeper than the last. Gritting her teeth, Sarah held Emily's hand tighter, an iron grip. We will stand together. Yet deep within, she could sense the sinister presence lurking, plotting its next move. The shadows writhed with purpose, gathering strength. An echo of laughter rang out, this time different, more twisted. What sinister dance were they partaking in? Each heartbeat felt like a countdown, but what awaited them? The light flickered, a desperate glimmer against the biting darkness. Would their memories hold enough power to push back the consuming dread? With an unsteady breath, Sarah confronted the figure, the insatiable predator. We will find the light within no matter what you take. As the shadows loomed, rage fueling their advance, an ominous realization hit Sarah hard. This wasn't just a battle for love. It was a war for existence. And she was determined to fight. But would it be enough? An unsettling silence hovered like a storm cloud as the darkness surged, looming closer, ready to strike. What other truths lay buried within this nightmare? Would their fire withstand the relentless bite of the shadows? Sarah knew they had to unearth something deep within before time slipped away, before everything was lost. The shadows surged like a hungry tide, threatening to engulf the last of the light. Sarah felt Emily's fingers tremble in her grip, the fear rushing through them both like ice water. Panic surged, clawing at the edges of her sanity. Every instinct told her to flee, yet here she stood, anchored in this hellish nightmare. Just think of the colors. Emily pressed, her voice quaking yet resolute. The darkness swallowed the clearing, twisting the air into thick cords of dread. Sarah drew in a shaky breath, trying to quell the encroaching terror. We'll focus on the rain, the laughter, and the beauty of life. Her heart clutched at the thought of failing. What if they lost everything? Suddenly, the figure lunged forward. Shadows exploded from its core, ripping through the air toward them like arrows of malevolence. With a primal scream, Sarah shoved the memories forth, feeding the light with everything they held dear. Light, we summon it. Bright sparks erupted as vivid scenes played out in her mind. Emily dancing in the rain, the sound of joyous giggles, their carefree moments woven into a tapestry of resilience. The shadows recoiled, the glimmers of light pushing them back, but only just. Don't let go, Sarah cried, feeling the darkness inch closer. A frigid wave washed over them, and doubt crept in. The figure was patient, relishing the growing turmoil. It knew their fears all too well. I'll take it all away, it howled. The memories, the joy, I'll dissolve you into despair. Within the flickering light, Sarah saw the edges of Emily fade slightly, as though the girl was tethered to a dark abyss. Mom, I feel it pulling me. No. The denial tore from Sarah's throat in a desperate wail. She forced herself to look into Emily's deep eyes, her reflection blurred by the dread closing in. You are stronger than it. Remember our garden? The blooming flowers? How we nurtured them together. The shadows pulsed with hunger, twisting and writhing before them. Yet now, Sarah could feel a glimmer of truth growing in their connection, an undeniable bond forged through love. Mom, help me remember. Emily dug deep inside herself, her small brow furrowed with concentration. The stars. The night we saw shooting stars? Remember how we both wished? Sarah's heart ignited. Yes. With popcorn under the moonlight. She conjured the chemistry of that night, the laughter, the wonder, the promises whispered into the night air. Light erupted, a fierce explosion that cascaded through the garden, a blinding shield of remembrance echoing back the darkness. The figure shrieked in rage, the sound piercing and unsettling. But the darkness fought back, gathering in fury, ripping at the light. Your memories are mere flickers. They are nothing to me. Shivers cascaded down Sarah's spine. No, they are everything, she roared. The brightness enveloped everything as frantic moments of their past reverberated louder, growing stronger with every beat of their hearts. Yet, as the light met darkness in a furious clash, doubt embedded itself in Sarah's mind. What would happen if the figure broke through? Was this all a grand illusion, a trap conjured to ensnare their souls? She felt it, a thin veil of horror creeping in, an ominous uncertainty wrapping around her heart. Just as the figure recoiled from the light, Sarah glimpsed a flicker of something deep within the shadows, a haunting flicker, a truth waiting to be unveiled. An ancient darkness twisted, holding secrets that made her blood run cold. "If you think this fight is over," it hissed, teeth glinting like daggers in the dim light, "then what if I told you this is just the beginning? I hold truths you could never fathom." Fear washed over her in waves. There was more at stake than just their memories. This felt like a war brewing beneath the surface. What other horrors lay hidden beyond the veil of this darkness? With each passing moment, Sarah knew they were running out of time. What truths would plunge them deeper into this nightmarish abyss? She needed answers before it was too late. The air in Cedar Grove hung thick with a sense of impending doom, and Sarah felt it deep in her bones as she braced for the final confrontation with the figure that was both terrifying and mesmerizing. Shadows writhed, twisting around them like serpents, and the laughter of darkness echoed with a chilling familiarity. It was as if all the souls lost in this cursed place were crying out for release, and the very ground beneath them trembled in resonance. The figure stood before them, its form pulsating with shadow and malice. "You cannot hope to defeat me, Sarah," it shrieked, voice crackling like ice. "I thrive on fear, on despair. I am the embodiment of every lost soul who passed your doorstep, every moment of grief eating away at your heart." In that instant, Sarah's mind flashed through a kaleidoscope of memories: the laughter of her daughter, playful rain-soaked afternoons, the soft warmth of shared blanket cocooning them during winter storms. Light ignited in her chest, steady and fierce. "You are wrong," she declared, her voice rising above the chaos. "This isn't just about fear. It's about love, the kind of love that brings light even into the darkest corners. You can't take that from us." As she spoke, Emily's determination ignited alongside her mother's. "We are stronger together. You can't have us." With a deep breath, they conjured every joyful moment, every shared smile, knitting the threads of their memories into a shield that glowed with an almost blinding light. The figure recoiled for a moment, twisting in agony as the light pierced through the shadows, stirring the very essence of the damned. "No," it screeched, fury boiling within each syllable. "You will regret this defiance." But Sarah knew they could not give in to the temptation to retreat. Each heartbeat echoed with strength, and their connection became unbreakable, a radiant link powered by love and hope. "Remember the garden, Em. Remember how we made it bloom together," she urged, her spirit alight with purpose. In that flicker of time, when the shadows drew near, the essence of their memories coalesced into something extraordinary, a blinding sun that shattered the darkness, creating a path through the desolate landscape. Sarah stood firm, eyes locked onto Emily's. "With every laugh and every tear, we reclaim our light." Then, an earth-shattering roar erupted from the cloaked figure. Fury mingled with fear. "Light won't defeat me. I am eternal. You think the night will not swallow you whole?" Shadows lunged, but they were held at bay by the fierce tide of warmth emanating from mother and daughter. "Yes, it will," Emily shouted, each word laced with the strength of childhood innocence. "Because light will always return." With that, they surged forward as one, their bond stronger than any darkness that dared to claim them. Sarah concentrated fiercely, siphoning hope into the light around them, letting their laughter spiral forth against the creeping shadows. The garden bloomed in ethereal brilliance, each flower unfurling under the glow. Now," Sarah cried, and together they directed all their love and light toward the figure that had loomed so large in their nightmares. Their combined voices melded into one rallying cry: "You cannot have us. We choose life." The brilliance exploded in a flood of warmth that sent the shadows screeching into retreat, the malevolent figure dissipating in a blinding flash, howling in anguish as it clawed desperately at the remnants of its power. They pressed forward, hearts synchronized in purpose. With one final surge, the light engulfed the last of the darkness, illuminating Cedar Grove in its gentle embrace. It was not just a victory. It was freedom, a liberation of the lost souls who had wandered too long in despair. The air crackled with energy, leaving echoes of laughter and love swirling around them. As the ground solidified back to familiar soil, the shadows receded. Cedar Grove transformed. Its nightmarish past flickered, like the remnants of a fading storm. Sarah embraced Emily tightly, tears of relief spilling down her cheeks. "We did it," she whispered, her voice trembling with gratitude and love. In that moment, a sense of peace descended upon them, the weight of dread lifted, and a new dawn broke upon the town. The laughter of children blended harmoniously with the rustling leaves. Their neighbors emerged, bewildered but alive, drawn again to the light that radiated from Sarah and Emily. Cedar Grove was reborn, with every family renewed in spirit, their voices uniting in gratitude. As they parted ways, warmth settled within the air, a promise of hope. Sarah turned to Emily, heart still racing. "We're free, my love, and nothing can ever take that from us again." With a last look back at the evergreen shadows that had haunted them, they stepped into the embrace of the morning sun. They had overcome the darkness. They were more than just survivors. They were beacons of light against the abyss. As the laughter of Cedar Grove echoed in the morning, the significance of their victory hung sweetly in the air. Now, dear friends, this is your call to action. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will thrill you. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this shocking ending. And please, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share the light. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.